Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of A Bit of This and a Bit of That. My name is Yulyah Zamzuli Baharani, and in this episode, we are going to continue the talk on mental illness and mental health. Wow, we are in part 3 already. If you are listening to this, I assume you have already listened to the first and second parts of the talk, but if you have not, I suggest it will be best if you listen to the first two parts before continuing with this, but you will still able to follow the talk even if you start with this episode, so have it your way. I am only happy someone is listening. Anyway, in part two, I have talked about the darkest parts of my struggle with mental health, which is also the turning point in my life. I have also talked about the immediate steps you can do and follow if you are struggling. And in this part, I will focus on the more fundamental solution, how my profound shift of perception on mental illness and mental health and on life in general, how it happened, and how I have been living my life based on that newfound understanding. This will be about my experience to seek help and getting better, including some quote unquote epiphanies I get throughout my journey. I imagine this to be a beautiful talk and I hope it turns out the way I plan it. But anyway, stay tuned. Have you ever come across the question of when is it that you start to really live? Or perhaps have you ever thought about that question and urge yourself to provide an answer to that question? I often think about that question, and my answer to that is we start to really live when we are in the face of death, when you have confronted the reality of being gone, of death, you know to appreciate being alive and being present. I probably heard that somewhere else or read it in a book or any other sources I may have come across once. But that pair of question and answer has stayed with me like some sort of epiphany. And I often claimed to have realized it after my struggle with mental illness, specifically the suicidal part. That pair of question and answer probably works in either a literal or a figurative way to each person, probably in both ways to some people. And that is what happened in my case. Surviving a suicide attempt and finally break free from the persistent suicidal thoughts, being at the brink of death, being forced to face the realization that I probably had met my last moment of living. That experience put me in a position where I really realized that I want to live and I am determined to really live, to live fully, to push myself, to live fearlessly, to take a chance, to be brave, to embrace myself. The process of where I go through all those things is basically what I will be talking about in this part. It is a series of thinking process and realization in the long journey to healing. There are two parts in my journey to healing, and those two happen simultaneously. One is the emotional process in my head, and there is also the practical manifestation of that. I will be talking about those two as parts of one whole process. So, as I said before, the profound journey to healing had started since long before, and it happened already since I was still struggling. Healing and struggling are not necessarily two different versions of myself, but parts of the same thing. And sometimes I am both at the same time. I am okay and not okay. I am not okay and I'm okay, all at the same time. As I said in the previous parts, social withdrawal is one of the most striking symptoms, but I couldn't really be categorized into experiencing this because I was never a social person in the first place. So, anyway, I got help and things went on until my suicidal thoughts and finally the attempt. Um, the realization that I had gone that far and the enormous relief to have survived it left me with a head full of questions and unidentifiable emotions. I was scared of myself. At the beginning, I was not able to understand what it was and why it happened in the first place. I knew it was mainly triggered by my illness and the new shipwreck that was my life. But on a bigger and more profound sense, I had no idea what happened. Is it biology? Is it chemical? Is it philosophy? Is it spiritual? What is it? I found myself in that state of emotion at that time. So, to free myself from all the questions, to enable myself to heal, I began my quest. I knew back then I would only able to move forward if I had acquired a full understanding and an objective assessment of what happened to me, not only from what I heard from the professional, but from myself as well. I, as the individual who's suffering, I had to really understand what my conditions were, what they meant, and what they did to me. It was necessary for me to stop putting the blame on myself and, to stop being bitter to others whose response to my condition had not been the kindest. So I read more. I read about mental illness, about mental health. I read about neurology. I read about psychology. I read about human. I read I read everything really. I searched talks on internet about mental illness and suicide, and this is one of the things that really has a significant effect on me. As I searched more, as I listened more to people, sharing the story, I realized that I really felt comforted by all their stories, not in the way to compare who has it worse or who has it better, but it enables me to empathize, and it it enables me to see and to be certain that if someone can make it out alive, then you can too. And it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling to realize that we're not the only ones suffering. I used to really think about that, about why other people's stories had such enormous effect on me. Then I was brought to another realization: the significance of human experience with another human being, the miracle of connection. Connecting with people really has that effect of elevating our spirit. You know, I believe the will to survive multiplies when other people come into the picture, into our story. And this is one of the most significant parts of my healing. Learning about being human with fellow human being around me. I learned to understand, I learned to appreciate. To understand actually is easier. It only gets to do with what's in our head, our intelligence. But to appreciate something, to appreciate a person's story, it takes emotion. It requires us to delve deep into our hearts and to find out what is the real deal in being human. I learned about how, in order to have an actual relationship with others, you have to share parts of yourself. And I struggled. I really struggled on this at the beginning. It's not always easy. It's not always easy to share yourself, especially when you have spent so many years guarding and building an invisible wall. I love it when people share their problem with me, asking for my opinion, but I would never do the same. I would never share my problems and have them to help me solve my problem. My best friend even said to me one day that she couldn't even ask me personal question because she's not sure if she's allowed. And we are best friends. It was such a blow for me. That realization of how poor I had been with other people really startled me, and I promised myself to do better. I learned to open up. Even right now, I'm still learning to open up. It is still frightening. It is genuinely and truthfully frightening. But I want to help people who might be experiencing the same thing, and I guess I just want to tell my story openly and truthfully, and that becomes my reason and my strength. The realization of how important the human connection is, it gives so much meaning to my life and to so many things I have experienced. Like all those warm, fuzzy feeling in my chest when I encounter a kind stranger. At that time, I only recognized it as a warm, fuzzy feeling, but I didn't think much of it. Only then I realized when I have realized the significance of human connection, that I am able to define that warm, fuzzy feeling as a result of parts of myself and parts of their self, the strangers, somehow connect, and it resulted in that warm, fuzzy feeling I have in my chest. And to be able to define that, to give it a definition, and you know, it it gives me another chance and a whole more significant chance to appreciate that feeling. And talking about strangers, there are many occasions where strangers help save my life, both directly and indirectly. I remember one early morning, it's not even dawn yet, and I really needed medicine at the time, but I couldn't go out to buy it myself because I couldn't even open my eyes normally because it hurt so much. So I had to buy food on an online service, and I asked the driver to help buy my medicine. And it was a troublesome thing for him to do. He was not required to do that because it was not the service that was offered. But he was so kind to me that he went to that length to be able to help me, to provide a help to me. The stranger, he didn't even know personally. And also, there's the story I shared in the previous part, the kind security staff who helped me, and the pharmacist nearby who booked a drive for me to get me into the emergency unit. And those people, I really want to meet the driver who drove me to the hospital that night, actually. And because, I was not conscious, I didn't remember anything about him, and I didn't even properly thank him. Not properly, actually, I didn't thank him at all. I didn't even pay what I owe him. When I went out of hospital, I brought cake to everyone that helped me that night, and I wanted to trace who my driver was, but I couldn't find him. And I really wish I can picture his face. So, if one day I meet him on the road, I can I can say thanks. Those things like that, people like that. He probably doesn't even remember that night. It was simply one of those nights he went out for work. But for me, he has saved a life in so many ways. And I hope wherever he is now, he is doing great. And I pray to God he is compensated in every possible way. Not only for saving my life, but also you know, for unknowingly providing my soul with more warmth I so desperately needed at that time. human connection. Human connection does wonder, really. My relationship with my closed ones also changed for the better after, after them knowing what really happened to me. My close friends know where I stand, and I know that they care. And most importantly, and most significantly in my journey to healing, the dynamic at my house as well, it really changes for the better because of my situation. And that's the part that, if I have to pinpoint one thing that is most helpful, that in enabling me to heal, to really heal, it is the change in the dynamic at my house. Because we are one big loving family. My parents and the six of us, we really love each other. But then, because we live, all of us actually left home already, so we never really, I guess people are, everyone, each and every one of us is busy with our own life. And whenever we whenever we gather at one occasion, we don't really talk about something serious. We joke a lot. And in my case, my parents and my siblings always known me have always they have always known me as the loner the loner child. So they couldn't differentiate between me preferring to be alone and me being lonely. So when I was really lonely, I couldn't really ask for help. I couldn't really reach out at that time, and they couldn't recognize that need of me to have a company. And when they realized what happened, they began to be much more assertive, to be keen, to be keen to differentiate whenever I just want to be alone because I want to work on something. And when I am alone because there's no company, and I really don't want to be alone. So they know where to come and to approach me. And that is the most significant part that enables me to heal, sorry. Um then there's also, I also want to talk about this. In my journey to healing, when I went home from after my attempt, one of the biggest help I got it from my cat. And this might seem silly to some people, but this helped me significantly. At the first few months after my attempt, I felt very lonely, but I felt people were being intrusive. I was not so keen on answering questions, and I was still at the stage of learning how to approach and to respond to, you know, being approached. But my cats, they didn't care. Their name are Sally and Moose, by the way. Especially Sally. She is my oldest cat. She just wanted to snuggle. She didn't tiptoe around me. She, you know, she just provide me. She just did as she usually does around me. She she behaves in a way that make it seem like nothing has happened, nothing significant has happened, that everything is all right. And Moose as well. Moose, who was still a kitten at that time, was in the mood of, being brazen and not caring all the time. And whenever I was in one of my grumpy moods, she she just didn't care. She probably thought to herself that her human friend must be in one of her moods, but she's harmless. It's completely benign to keep probing her, so she did. And it really helped. Feeling the genuine love and care and friendship from my cats. It really warmed my heart at that time. And it is one of the huge part in my journey to healing as well. All those contacts with living things, with love and care and warmth and friendship, knowing that I am loved by my family and friends, it helped in a way I really cannot put into words. It became a strong and powerful starting point for me to get up, to start another take on living life fully. I practice opening up through my blogs on WordPress and Tumblr. I made this, surprisingly well ordered list. I made a list of why I should stay alive, and I often laugh when I see that list now, because despite my messy life, I managed to um to make that well ordered list. I keep them mostly on my Tumblr, and nobody see my Tumblr actually. No one really cares, but I guess, knowing that my heartbreak, my struggle, my story are out there, that I am strong enough to be vulnerable that way, it's it's comforting in a significant way. Even this podcast actually, this plays a huge part in my journey to healing. I also think one of the things that really helped me in an enormous way is that I am not the type of person who pity themselves. I don't want to pity myself no matter how messed up the circumstances are. I never want to feel sorry for myself. Of course, oftentimes actually, I can't help but think of other scenarios. What if I had done it the other way? Would there be any difference at all? And I don't want to normalize regrets in any way, but for me, a little bit of regret and reminiscence every once in a while, I think that is healthy. Just don't let it eat you up. Reminiscing about those moments in life where we thought we could have probably do better. It helps us to learn about ourselves, and it's a chance for learning for me. I love to think about that quote unquote regretting stuff. I love to approach that feeling in that way, that we have to acknowledge that happens, that it happens, but it happened already, and we can only think about it and try to find any lesson at all that we can take from that. And one of the effect of that approach is I I enable myself to have more compassion, to have more, to be more understanding, and to never do immediate judgment. And that's what I want to do to myself and to others, and what I wish human beings do to each other. The practical things happening in my surrounding is significantly, what is the word to use, um, enhanced, strengthened. Anyway, it is it is supported, strengthened, and enhanced by the process of healing within myself. So there's the healing, the external healing, my relationship with others and stuff. And there's also the healing within, the healing in my heart, myself, my mind, the thinking in my head, my perception of things. And this is the stage where my journey to healing comes to happen in a holistic way. And if a question is asked, if someone asked me on what really changes that enables me to heal, my first answer will be this: I learn to see things differently. That is what happened. There is a radical change in how I see death, for example. I used to be so afraid of death that it became one of the reasons I had to take more substance, because my suffering escalated. Then, there's also the period where I wanted to come to death because it seemed to be the best way to escape the mess of my life. So I have that relationship with death. But then, after allowing myself to feel and to think, to learn and to understand, I now have come to a point where I can see death simply as a natural process every living thing will come upon when the time comes. It's not huge, it's not small. It is. Death is death. Nothing more and nothing less. The lesson, the wisdom, the relief, the gratitude, everything I have gained along the way, it enables me to experience many shifts in my perception, how I understand life and universe and time and space, how I understand happiness and meaning, how I see God and religion and spirituality. The effect of that shift in perception, it made everything I had gone through seemed like a blessing in disguise. It changes me for the better. My relationship with myself, you know, with people, especially my close ones, with my family and friends, it all changes. And most importantly, my relationship with God. I don't want this episode to be about all that, religious wisdom. I don't want, I don't want me to present myself as the enlightened one. Ugh, that's I couldn't even believe I said the word enlightened. But anyway, I don't want to do that, to be preaching and lecturing, because I have nothing to be that and to do so. But in all truth and genuine honesty, because I'm all being truthful now, this is a very open and truthful talk. I have to say that what saves me and what enables me to really heal is the shift in how I understand God. How my understanding of God impacts my understanding of the concept of life, and to see how I stand in this huge, huge world as a human being, a tiny little existence in the form of a human. There are so many moments in my life that I can call miracle that shows me against all odds I am still here, so it must mean something. There has to be a meaning, a purpose behind it. My life, me being alive, my existence, it must mean something. And after being certain of that, I am committed that as long as I am still protected, still blessed with this gift of life, I used to so often want to just give up in the past. I know that I owe it to myself and to everyone that has made my life a worthwhile journey. I owe it to me and to them to live my life the best way I can. And I am committed to do that. And that commitment is one of the the most significant parts that make my journey to healing possible. I want to share things I have learned throughout my journey to healing. It is an ongoing process, and I genuinely hope there will be a good outcome of my sharing ways to cope with my struggle and ways to maintain a healthy state of mind. So this is what I can share. First and foremost, acknowledge when you're in need of help, because others can't help you if you don't ask for help or don't want to be helped, and you cannot help yourself if you don't think you need help. It's okay to complain. It is perfectly okay to complain. My best friend once said this to me: if you're in pain, feel the pain, feel it, and then fight to overcome it. Because if you cannot feel it, if you don't acknowledge its existence, you cannot fight to overcome it. And the fight, it is a battleground, one you cannot afford to lose because it will cost you your life, literally. Then, one of the really important thing is to change the mindset in seeing the problems with mental health. Do not think what is wrong with you when you're suffering. Think about what happens to you. What happens to you that, you know, puts you in this position. And remember that mental illness is not a sign of weakness, because people often knows that in the back of their head, but they often don't act as if they know it at all. So repeat to yourself that mental illness is not a sign of weakness. It's not something you should be shameful of, and it is something you should overcome. It is simply something that happens to you and you should overcome. There's an interesting concept I learned. It is about happiness, that there is natural happiness and there is synthesized happiness. Natural happiness happens when life goes the way we want it, and synthesized happiness happens when life doesn't go the way we want it, but we accept it and we try to feel happy anyway. Synthesizing happiness is our head's unconscious survival ability. It's our head's own psychological immune system. And only later I realized that my mind had already done that my mind always does this. Even before my conscious mind realized it, even before I know of that name of synthesized happiness and of psychological immune system, even before I became aware of that, my mind had done it already. And I'm sure that it works that way as well in other people. When we're sad, we want to numb the emotion that inflict that sadness. But in numbing it, we cannot just numb parts of emotion. When we numb everything. And by everything, it includes all the good things like joy and love and, gratitude. So when you're sad, just feel it. When life doesn't go the way you want it, just, just, just ride the wave. Just leave it and try to look at it in a more positive way. The major step for me is the shift in my perception of vulnerability. It's the courage to be imperfect, because we human, we often don't allow ourselves to be imperfect, to be openly imperfect, to be openly vulnerable, to be openly, to to realize that we don't have to be strong all the time, because that courage to be imperfect, that the strength to be vulnerable, it enables us to be kind to ourselves and to be kind to others. And that is really a huge factor in you know allowing ourselves to heal. So say it out loud: I am enough, you are enough, we all are enough as ourselves. Say it out loud, then go find joy in everyday life. One of the most important things is to surround ourselves with people we love and people who love us. There's a Harvard study on happiness by Robert Waldinger, and I think I heard this from a TED talk. Anyway, it states that the way to happiness is good relationship with family, with friends, with community. So once again, the keyword connection, human connection. And there's internet now. We live in an online open world. And while it has its own negative effects, but it's also an excellent place to look for connection. It is an excellent place to share stories, to help others, to connect, to empathize. And I'm speaking from a personal experience that I so often come across a very a very genuine conversation, a very what should I say? A very, how should I describe it? Like, I often went to YouTube under, a clip of a song or a clip of what, but most often in a clip of a song in the comment section, people just openly share about what one song, what a certain lyrics mean to them, then share their own personal story regarding to that, and other people chime in, and people start talking and then start encouraging each other to be strong, and that is so uplifting for me. It warms my heart every time I come across that. And I often think that that we really have to be proactive to provide ourselves that sense of belonging, that sense of community, that sense of of oneness, unity, that we you know we don't really, that what we feel sometimes is felt by other people as well, and that that's our perception of the same thing, of struggled and what we have gone through and what other people have gone through. It it strengthened that human connection, that connection that sometimes lack definition. It becomes sometimes more like a physical thing. I often feel that way because I really feel like it's palpable, because I can feel it. I can feel the change of realizing connection. I can feel what it does to myself, to my body, mentally and physically. And I encourage people to seek out for that connection, because when you connect, you you know when you allow yourself to share your story, to hear what other people has to say, when you allow yourself to feeling needed, to feeling that there's something you can do for others, it really helps to maintain a positive mind, and it helps you to have a clear grasp of identity, of meaning for existence. You get helped when you help others. That's what I really believe in. You get helped. You will be helped when you help others. And when you share your story, you are getting help for yourself as well as opening chances to help others. And we also will realize that, through connecting through real life or online world, we will realize that we are not as alone as we often think we are. You won't be alone if you find out ways to not be alone when you don't want to be alone, because other people want to help as much as you want to help. That's what I believe in. One of the most important things as well, that to enable us to start our journey to healing, is we have to change the definition of what depression and anxiety really are. Because while it's true that there are biological and um, you know chemical contribution to the causes of depression and anxiety, but to make it seem like chemical and biology are the big picture, the profound root, what it's all about, then by then we stop taking it, we stop taking it seriously. Because with mental illness, particularly anxiety and depression, because that's what I'm most familiar with. The problem goes deeper than just the biology or the chemical, the chemistry in an individual. So, because the problem goes deeper than that, then the solution has to go deeper as well. It has to go deeper than, let's say a mere drug relief. And that's not saying that medical prescription is not helping, because it does help me enormously. And I believe it helps many other people as well. But in a more fundamental approach for a long term solution, we need more than just that. We have to connect with something bigger than ourselves, something to hold on to instead of depending on the feeling of happiness that comes and goes at it wills. For myself, um, I don't know how to say this eloquently, but accepting that we are only human and that there is a divine power that is God who decide everything. In my case, that is another major step that enables me to heal. I acknowledge that the good in my life comes from God, every good thing, and I have been blessed with all kind of good things throughout my life. You know, those good things that I only say gratitude to God out of habit, but don't think more of it. I accept that everything is a blessing from God. Then, if the good comes from Him, then the bad also comes from God. And I believe that the blessing are all the blessings I have gotten throughout my life all this time. I got that for purpose. Purpose I have found out, and purpose I haven't found out. But it has purpose behind it. So if the good all the good things that are given to my life has purpose behind it, then all the bad, the unfortunate things that are given up in my life, up in my way, there must also there must be a purpose behind it as well. So acknowledging that everything comes from God and there is a purpose behind it. By acknowledging that, I free myself from having to bear the sole responsibility for the misfortune in my life. And I find that approach very comforting and liberating. It really is liberating. It freed my soul from that burden, that pressure you know, of my distorted perception of individuality, and that everything happens solely because of myself, which prompt me to blame everything on myself and to be bitter when I was not so satisfied with myself. Actually, you know, most of the things we will hear when learning about this kind of topic are the things we have come across before. We know them. We know some values so well that they become cliches, literally cliches. But we don't live by them. It's just something we thought it's always been that way, but we never think much about it. So I guess the first step is to really try to live by all those lessons we've learned. to stop taking it as mere cliches and start to taking them seriously and to live by it. Let's put into action the idea of pursuing moments of meaning and of purpose, pursuit of happiness. Let's try to be more practical. I find it very helpful to change, that way of thinking, to be more practical, to apply what I have learned in my head in my daily life. And I believe everyone wants to live. Everyone wants to stay alive. I believe that. I genuinely believe that. I genuinely believe that everyone has the capability to reinvent themselves from the ruins caused by the choices. I believe in the power of individual to heal and to live. I believe that a single part of our life shouldn't define what we are and what we're not capable of. I believe that one period of life not going as we expected it to be shouldn't hold the power to brand us as a failure. I genuinely believe all of those. So to myself, I'm talking to myself as well as to everyone who's listening, to us all. You are just you. You are simply you, instead of what other people think of you and what your distorted perception might be telling you. You are you. Your light never goes out. It never goes out. You just lost sight of it sometimes. You are strength and vulnerability all at once. You are what you know as you and so much more. You are you. You are you and so much more. In a journey of to healing and in journey to maintain that state, a reason to live equals to a will to live. So be aware, realize your reason, invent your reason. Hold on to that. Don't lose your will to live. And I am proud to say that even though it is an ongoing process, but I have arrived at, the point of starting my journey to healing. I don't know if, I will one day I will be fully healed, whatever that means. But I am proud of myself to arrive at this point and to start my journey to healing, to start realizing and to be committed to live the way life should be lived, the way I really want to live, the way my time on earth deserved to be lived. I am proud of that. And I want to encourage everyone to put effort to enable themselves to be in a position where they can say out loud that they are proud of their life, they are proud of themselves, with all the strength and the vulnerability, with all the good and the bad that comes with life. I want that for each and every one of us. I think of my struggle with mental health and mental illness as a wake up call. There are lots of unaddressed problems and questions. There are many status quos in my life, and I only have the bravery and the courage to address them after I come back from the darkest place. Things like the consequence of a decision. What is it that shape what becomes of what we are? Who are we? Who we are? What is the right way to live? What to make of youth and age, and so many other things. I also learn about myself in the most profound and fundamental way, by living that very difficult period of my life. I will talk about that in the next episode, which also will be the last parts of our talk on mental illness and mental health. For now, I thank you for listening to this episode and for following the talk on mental illness and mental health so far. I hope this will be helpful in any way. And please reach out to me. We can talk or anything. Anyway, that's all for now. Until the next episode, and bye!